Bonus, bitches.
We're here.
This one's been in the cards for a while, it seems.
You know, just to preface, this band is my favorite band, even if I don't want to admit it.
What makes you not want to admit it?
Part of it's like, oh, they come and go for me. Like, I have my moments with the band. I'll return to an album or so, like throw it in heavy rotation for a week and then toss it to the side. Now I'm burping because I started drinking Miller Lite. But yeah, 2 years in a row, my Spotify Wrap #1 band. Yeah, okay, I guess so. I buy their merch and I'm wearing a sweatshirt with a shirt underneath that's also Brockhampton. Yeah,
You came prepared.
I did.
You were in the spirit.
I am. I've been waiting a long time, and I think as we move along through our lists, we'll probably come to the conclusion, at least for me, that it's like actually just like 4 or 5 songs off a record, and I disregard the rest a majority of the time. I mean, obviously, like after an album kind of loses its luster when it first comes out, you know, you pick your favorites that you like and you'll throw those in.
There's a few of theirs that are like that for me, for sure.
But yeah, like I guess supposedly, who knows? Who fucking knows? They've said it a million times that the band's gonna end. But as of now, it seems like it's in the most solidified state that it's ever been in. As far as like we're not gonna get any more Brockhampton records, so
We'll see.
the time is now. Yeah, they'll take a fucking 6-month hiatus and be like, the band's back. So without X amount of members, and so we'll get there.
Even if that is the end, their main run was about 5 years, 2017 till now, and they had a lot of material in that time. They have like a whole band's discography worth of music.
Yeah.
And what most musicians would take 10 to 15 years to make, you know?
I think they just had so much to pull from creatively as a group. I don't know. Not every member has to be on every song. Don't take a peek. Get your fucking eyes off from my list.
I wasn't looking.
And, you know, I just feel like each member has their lanes that they typically stick to. Certain members sound best together. The band, like, developed certain instrumental styles for each album for the most part, like Saturation Trilogy, like Ginger, Iridescence, most recently like Roadrunner. Hip-hop is kind of weird, and I think we'll talk about it. A majority of the time, there are like little glints and small moments on records where it kind of feels like instrumentally it's unified. But in hip-hop, it's never really acoustic or derivative of this style of music, or like grunge or emo pop or what have you.
The digital landscape lends itself to a huge variety.
And I think the fact that the band itself is so broad and like different styles, different deliveries, different backgrounds that the bands come from culturally, you know, they kind of blend together. So it's kind of hard. It kind of feels less instrumental, collective album, and more like a fucking vibe. A moment in the band's history, what they were going through. That's what they're rapping about.
And that brings me to a point that we have to acknowledge they were hot and then they were not kind of status of the group, especially with like the departure of Ameer Vaan after the Saturation Trilogy. The discourse around Brockhampton changed so much after that happened, where it was like, wow, this is like the greatest new thing. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like everybody was tired of them, like 2 years in.
Yeah.
It was weird, man.
I think what's been the strangest thing for me is that I hopped on the bandwagon late. You introduced me to them after Saturation 3 had already been out. And I had gotten into them for a few months, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, this band member is out now. And for some reason, they never really kept that momentum. It was very strange to me. Very, very strange. Like, even like with these most recent releases, I feel like all of my exposure to other people's opinions have been like relatively positive. Not even in regards to the records themselves, but just like, oh, I'm at least thankful that we got like these last 2 records, even if they're like not the most outstanding. It's like at least we got like new music.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure there's a side where it's like, why the fuck did they keep releasing music? It's fucking trash. Like, I don't even know why. You know, I don't get to see that side though. So and the band's following diminished over time for the most part in the latter half. My YouTube algorithm is made for me, so things are positive. And, you know what I mean? From my perspective of the band.
Yeah, when you spend as much time on Twitter as I do, you see the range of opinions that people have on this group. But for me, for the most part, I mean, mostly positive throughout their career, except for these top 2 spots on my list, which we'll get to. But yeah, we're ranking Brockhampton from worst to best, all 8 albums, I believe.
We're doing 8. We're excluding
All American Trash.
Yeah.
I've actually never listened to their debut.
I have, and it's not great.
I've heard it's forgettable.
It's very demo-y.
Okay.
Really, really stripped back.
No solo projects are included in this list or anything.
Debatable.
Well, very true. I almost forgot about that. If anybody's listened to the other ranked lists that we've done, we usually switch sides pertaining to like how we follow the list as we go through the ranking. Mm-hmm. So today we are following your list. Mm-hmm. So I will announce what I have at a number, and then you'll announce what you have, and then we'll just talk about where it sits for you. I'll chime in a little bit and just say where that record might sit for me somewhere else. I don't think it gets much more complicated than that. I mean, do you think that's okay?
Yeah, fair assessment. Let's roll. Number 8.
At number 8, I have their most recent album, TM, which I believe stands for The Mountain.
Okay, didn't know that. I do now. At number 8, I also have TM.
Okay.
This will be a fairly easy one to talk about, being that I don't have much to say. I think being the album that gets released the day after The Family is kind of odd. And I know where it sits, where like a lot of the material was already made. I think the problem with that is a lot of it feels a little unfinished. Some tracks just feel like pop tunes, honestly not even pop tunes, just kind of like droning over like the same chorus over and over again.
There's some big Travis Scott ripoffs on here.
Like Listerine.
Yeah.
I fucking can't stand that song.
I think that might be the worst song in their discography.
It sits there with like, I hate the song Sunny and Gamba from Saturation 2.
So do I.
Yeah, we'll get there. But yeah, it's just, I think there's some really great highlights though, like New Shoes and Crucify Me are actually, I think, like some of the best tracks that Brockhampton's ever released.
Crucify Me is like a unique one in their discography.
Like the fucking...
Like the shimmering pianos on that one.
It's like a complete jazz, like improvisation at the end of that track. Like I think it's like some of the most unique stuff that you get to see from the band's release. Like how freeform that song is. Like the only thing I can even compare it to is like when Bearface has a chance to shine on like outros and stuff. Like things are just more emotional, sentimental, more standard chorus delivery. No rapping really involved. It's kind of strange, but I think I want more, and I know we're not going to get any, but
I feel like it very obviously comes across as them just fulfilling this major label contract that they have. I mean, like the last half of the record is mostly Kevin and new-ish member Jabari, I think is his name, and he's the one that does like the Travis Scott ripoff vocals. And I think Jabari has been in the group since the beginning, but not like in a musical role. And them trying to include him so late in the game feels very forced. It's obvious that they didn't have enough material with the OG members to make a project. And there's like some decent OG style Brockhampton stuff on here. I mean, FMG and Keep It Southern like really call back to like the Saturation trilogy a little bit. But overall, it's a very empty feeling project.
I completely agree. It's a little frustrating. I think the best that you can make out of it is that you have those track highlights and you can kind of just forget the rest. And I think the album itself is very self-aware where it sits. So it's not a huge deal. I mean, I guess it's just more songs. It's like take it or leave it type of thing. But I mean, I think that's why it sits at the bottom.
Completely agree.
Number 7?
At number 7, I have the other most recent one, The Family.
At number 7, I also have The Family.
Okay.
You know, this was actually really hard for me. I almost had it a little bit higher. either at like number 6 or number 5. I had a really hard time because I actually think this record is fairly solid. I think it actually stands up really well with a lot of the other records. I think there are like some low points that are like a little forgettable, and I think that's pretty standard with the majority of their records. At least like kind of like middle of the list, moving to like maybe like even from number 4 where I kind of stand. I mean, there's some fucking misses on my number 1, but I think the album will grow on me over time, and it might make its way up. I don't know if I've had enough time to respect it yet. I think the instrumentals on this record, the sampling, is superb. I think the only things that I really have a problem with are the fact that it is just essentially a Kevin Abstract solo record under the Brockhampton label, but I miss a little bit of the fill because I think it allows songs that kind of show the weaknesses of Kevin's fill ability. Like, he has a really hard time tying verses together.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with everything you've said so far, actually. Like, I think this is like a solid project, but being a glorified solo album in the discography of a big group's like,
it feels
output,
wrong. It feels a little weird.
It feels wrong.
And honestly, it is the most fucking Brockhampton thing to fucking do, to literally have the most egomaniac member of the band just say fuck it and I'll just do it myself to fill out our contract.
It's not even produced by the Brockhampton team. No other members are featured here, except for I think there might be like a split-second moment of Bearface vocals on one of these tracks. I've only listened to this thing like twice all the way through.
Bearface helped produce the record.
Oh, did he really?
Which I think made it a little bit more fun for me.
And the instrumentals are a lot of fun, and they're interesting.
I think like track highlights for me would be like RZA, Any Way You Want Me, Gold Teeth, the ending, fucking Big Pussy. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I wore that track out when it first came out. But like Keep It Southern, or not Keep It Southern, Southside. Not a huge fan of Southside.
There's a few ones that are like
Basement, kind of
The execution of a few of these is kind of awkward.
Like Back from the Road reminds me of like a JPEG instrumental where like it's so stripped down. It's just like a drum beat, really flat delivery, like feels like meme style. I don't really think it works well in the record itself.
I'm not gonna lie, I enjoy the All That track.
Yeah.
Just because it's the theme song from a 90s kid show that I loved so much. I think the biggest disappointment for me of The Family is that it kind of under-delivers on the promise of explaining the breakup of Brockhampton. It feels like this would be the record for Kevin to like get out all the demons like about the whole situation of the group breaking up, but we kind of just get these like vague sentiments about what happened.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I agree. And I think one of the things with that, I think there are moments where he really tries. Like on RZA, for example, he like draws comparisons to like his mother speaking about him and his father, or excuse me, her and his father staying together through hard times, like keep the band together. But with that, I think lyrically, it's kind of mid. And same with like Brockhampton, the outro track. It's the same way. It feels like a curtain call, but it feels a little hollow. Like I just think he's not coming with enough energy. The lyrics aren't quite solid enough to really feel worthy. He goes on like a long tangent about each member. Dom, you're the greatest lyricist, or like yada, yada, yada. Man, it just feels like the tempo of the delivery is just a little off with like the instrumental. Like I really respect all the instrumentals, but I just think Kevin by himself is really struggling to get things wrapped up in a pretty little bow.
You know, this kind of worries me about solo albums by other members in the future, because I always thought Kevin was the one that would be able to handle a full-length album.
I do think Kevin has... his other solo records are fine. Like, they're okay.
Yeah.
Like, he was going to release a solo record a while ago, a couple years ago, that never came, which the couple singles that released for that were really great. What's the other one? It's got Georgia on My Mind.
Arizona Baby.
Arizona Baby. That one's fine. American Boyfriend. That's a fine record. I think Any Way You Want Me kind of calls back to that early Kevin. Kind of have a SoundCloud indie pop rap.
It's very reminiscent of like
Frank Ocean.
Early 2010s trends.
Yeah,
and that's cool.
Yeah, I think Kevin will be okay. I almost want to say that just the way the album comes across, it just feels a little rushed.
I completely agree.
And that's okay. I do want to actually compliment the family. Had a really good media, kind of like the art and like the music videos surrounding the album itself are really well done.
Okay, you know more about that than I do. I have not seen those music videos.
Some of the music videos I think are really fucking cool. And then also if you go on YouTube and listen to the album as a whole, just on like the Brockhampton YouTube page, there's like animation for each song. Similar to like Roadrunner, where like it would have a band member's face and it would be like using AI to like distort old photos and blend them together. Really interesting stuff.
See, I don't know anything about any of that.
Well, on this record specifically, it's one large picture of like a town, and it's like a bunch of crazy shit's happening, and on each song it zooms into a very small section of the photo. And so it kind of like, I don't know, it's got like good all around like graphic design, just like interesting, what is that fucking called? I don't know.
Aesthetic?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like a unified, I don't know.
There's a cohesive aesthetic about the projects.
Sure, if that's the way we can explain it.
I'm trying to find the word for you.
I can't fucking find it. But anyway, I don't know. I just think it's interesting.
It's a solid album that just doesn't belong under the name that it's under.
Yeah. It should just be under Kevin's name. But, hey, fucking contracts are contracts. So RCA's got to have their fucking share.
All right, moving on. At number 6, I have Ginger.
God damn, we're going to go fucking...
Are we toe-to-toe?
We're going to go toe-to-toe. I
Okay.
also have Ginger, yeah. I actually moved this one from 5 to 6 today. I had a really hard time kind of feeling it out. I think this album sits really well in their discography because it kind of felt like, at least perceptually, as fans, it kind of felt like, no, they're back on track. They're going to be okay, following that Iridescence release.
That's how I felt from the single releases leading up to the record, at least.
I think Sugar is still their most popular single.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it's their most played song.
I think Ginger has 2 of their all-time greatest songs.
Okay.
Sugar and No Halo. One really great song,
Dearly Departed.
Dearly Departed. And then the rest of the album is like a bunch of tracks that in the moment I find enjoyable, but outside of the context of the record, I don't want to single them out. Like, I'm never going to go
I'm actually
pick those.
I am almost inverse.
Wow, okay.
No Halo, Sugar, those tracks, I'm like fucking thumbs down. Like, I don't want to listen to that shit.
I think those are like some of the best they've ever done.
I think they're really solid. Don't get me wrong, but they're never tracks that I ever single out when I go to listen to the record. When I go to this record, I want to hear like the fucking umph, what the boys have been building up to. Like, fucking Ameer completely derailed their momentum, their snowball effect down the mountain. Like, it feels like you fucked us, and it's like, fuck you. We're never going to be where we were. Dearly Departed is that track for me. Like, Dom's verse is, I think it's his best verse that he delivers. At least, like, it feels the most personal.
Yeah, it's amazing.
He's the best lyricist in the group. So, like, leaving in him slamming the door, like, tearing off his headphones, like, fucking pissed, like, leaving that in the cut. I think it's really strange, but, like, the track I return to the most would be, like, Victor Roberts, which is, I think, arguably one of the best outros of the discography.
I agree with that.
And it's so strange because it's not even a band member. It's literally a guy that Dom met over, like, Xbox Live. And I think it's like a beautiful track. I think it's like about halfway from like the beginning of the track to halfway. It's like just him delivering like a story about him being a kid, clutching on to his Power Ranger, his Red Ranger. By the way, previous to recording, we were talking about the Power Ranger, so it fits perfectly. I love the Power Rangers.
Let the world know.
I'll fucking fight anybody that wants to fucking talk shit on the Power Rangers. Power Rangers are... Or anyway. And then like the that track breaks up to like Bearface fucking singing his heart out. I love the outro, but I think it sits so low for me because I think I really hate I've Been Born Again. Something about the album itself kind of feels acoustic at times, like a little bit more live bandy. Like there's a lot of acoustic guitar elements littered throughout a majority of songs.
Yeah.
Which like it's not like I don't enjoy those things, but it's such a somber moment for the band. It's like a reflection period where it's like kind of really hard to like sink low into like this depressive state that they're in. And then I think it's kind of weird because I think that's what the album's supposed to kind of be about. I mean, even like based off the album art itself, it's like a hug and embrace. And then it's like you just have like hard fucking tracks littered throughout. It just kind of feels...
It doesn't make sense, really. Because this definitely does have like the reputation of, especially when I see people talking about it,
it's the comeback
online,
record.
They'll say, this is like the emotional R&B record by Brockhampton. And you know what? I wish we would have gotten that, but it's not. Because tracks like If You Pray Right and I've Been Born Again, they feel so misplaced among this batch.
Boy Bye is way too fucking energetic.
It's a big switch up, instrumentally as well, with like these like mariachi bands and like tuba being like the main component of the instrumental. I really don't care for the trio of Ginger, Big Boy, and Love Me for Life, like tracks like that.
Yeah, I just think like those high emotional points in the record really get like watered down by like Kevin's like auto tune.
That should have been the album.
Yeah,
that vibe.
I completely agree.
Also, can I say that it's never not bothered me that the track Heaven Belongs to You, like the slow tie solo track, the instrumental would perfectly align with If You Pray Right. They're the same instrumental, but they put the track St. Percy in the middle. So there was a natural cohesion between those two tracks, but they like break it up for no reason. That has never not bothered me. It makes me angry, actually.
I want to say, like, just as a side tangent, I think this is the best album art for all of their discography. I think to me, it's the most unique. Like Saturation Trilogy, like feels very cohesive. Like Iridescence is cool. Roadrunner is pretty cool as well. But this one is such a standout. It's such a muted gray. It looks like the picture was taken on fucking Staten Island. Like it's so fucking dull. I just side tangent, but I don't know. This album's it's kind of mid. It's kind of mid. But my favorite moments are some of my favorites that the band's had.
Yeah.
What were we on, number 5?
Number 5. Okay, this is where I might lose you a little bit. At number 5, I have Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine.
Okay. At number 5, I have Saturation 2.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. This was really hard for me. I mean, as we're getting kind of the middle of the grouping here, it got really tough. I'll probably say this sentiment more than once, but it's been really difficult because I think the majority of the albums up for me feel like they all have very similar ratings. They all kind of lie somewhere in like a 7 to 8, at least on like a critical scale. Obviously, my tops feel a little bit more of a personal enjoyment, so they'll be a little skewed that way, biased. But yeah, Saturation 2, I have a really hard time putting it this low, but I think it earns its spot, and here's why. Saturation 1, instrumentally, production-wise, is the lowest quality, at least like fidelity-wise. Like the quality of samples, instruments used, like the way it comes across in your headphones. But I think front to back, it's a lot better than Saturation 2. And I think Saturation 3 takes that same element of Saturation 1 where I think front to back, it's damn near perfect. It's broken up with skits and maybe like a little bit of a mid track here and there, but not too bad. But I think the instrumental, the samples, the fidelity, the quality is cranked up to 10 compared to that. I think Saturation 2 kind of lies somewhere in the middle. It's pretty good front to back. I think the low points suck a lot for me, like Sunny, Gamba. This one kind of feels like it's not as cohesive all the way through for me. Don't get me wrong, one of my favorite tracks is on this record, being Summer. But it's kind of somewhere in between. And I think that's why I kind of have a little bit lower than Saturation 1 and 3. I just think it kind of takes a little bit of both of those records and kind of sandwiches them together, but I think it comes lesser of a whole.
Okay, this might be one of the times that me and you disagree, like,
Okay.
the hardest,
Okay.
actually. Saturation 2 is much higher on my list. When I think of Brockhampton and the Brockhampton sound, at least like in the original iteration of the group, I think of Saturation 2. I think it has like the best singles that the group has ever made. Gummy, Junkie,
Yep.
Sweet, Swamp. I love the track Tokyo. That's like one of my all-time favorite Brockhampton tracks. I guess there's like a few things that bring it down a little bit for me. I mean, I agree completely. Is it Jamba or Gamba?
Gamba, yeah.
That and Sunny are like two of the worst songs in their discography, at least.
Like, don't get me wrong, I love like Jesus or Jesus, I believe it's supposed to be.
That's the Ameer solo one, right?
Kevin.
I'm thinking of Teeth, which is the Ameer solo one,
That's a great track.
which is also great.
Don't get me wrong, these are great tracks. I had such a hard time.
I think like outside of that, the only other weak point is the track Chick, which kind of has like a weird instrumental that I've never really cared for that much. But outside of that, I feel like this is like their most banger-filled record.
Okay.
Like the best hooks and verses and stuff. I don't know, man.
Okay. I mean, I respect that. To me, with this record, those songs don't really stand out that much. I think my favorite moments on the track, or excuse me, on the album itself, are Summer, Tokyo, Swamp, Teeth, and that's about it. Gummy and Queer are like both really great opening tracks, but I don't really think they stack up compared to like Saturation 1 and Saturation 3 as far as like opening. And I think even though like this album closes really well with Summer, I think Saturation 1 is like the better closer. You get like Milk, Waste.
Oh, no, I'll admit.
We'll get there.
I think Summer is my least favorite out of Waste and Team.
Yep.
As like the Saturation closers for sure.
Summer is like one of my top 5, Brockhampton tracks. And
Okay.
I mean, like I learned it on the fucking guitar. Like I love it. I listen to it regularly. But to me, like this album kind of feels.
Is it like in transition for you?
A little bit. Like
Okay.
I think Saturation 1 established it. Saturation 2, I mean, obviously it's 1, 2, and 3, but like Saturation 2 kind of like helped move them along, get them more comfortable, and I think Saturation 3 elevates it even more, where like the band feels on cloud 9, leading into what would have been Puppy, yada yada. So that's kind of where I sit, and I completely respect your point of view. Like it was really fucking hard. I know we both said that going in, that we were gonna have a hard time.
It's not easy.
Number 4.
At number 4, I have Saturation 1.
I do as well. Perfect.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead.
What a great debut. I know technically like All American Trash is considered like their first project, but for the most part, this was the introduction of Brockhampton to the world. And what a introduction it was. I think it displays everything that makes the group special.
Heat Gold Star it's up there for like a 3-track run for the band.
It's an amazing trio.
Speaking of which, like I think it immediately falls off with like Boys. I think Boys is like a really annoying track. Hello, boys. Yeah.
I think it can be seen that way, but I actually like that song a lot.
You're gay. Sorry.
Boys.
Sorry. That was such like fucking Xbox Live humor. Like, yeah,
Yo, mom.
you're gay. Yeah, you're just gay, man. Like Fake, Bank. God damn, Bank is good. Trip.
See,
Bump.
Bank is one of the ones that I don't ever remember that fondly.
Really? I like that song a lot.
Oh, but Bump? Yeah.
Dude, fun fact. Fucking Bump is sampled in Iridescence for the track Honey.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Damn, I listened to Iridescence tonight, and I did not even notice that.
On Honey, they sample that track where I just want that bump in my trunk. They like fucking Chipmunks sold the shit out of it. We'll get there. Anyway.
I didn't even know that.
Yep, that track sampled to pull that shit together.
I think the reason that this one ranks below the other saturations for me is it just feels like the infant form of what they would go on to do. Some of like the pitch shifted vocals that they use on this album, I think the way they're used is kind of annoying at times, like a little amateur. I don't know, tracks like Trip, Swim. I can't even remember how Bank goes, to be honest.
Well, I mean, I think when you're talking about infancy with the band, obviously being like one of the early records, being essentially what their debut is to the world, I just think production-wise, it's a little on the lower end, which is to be expected on the budget they probably had. It's just fucking a bunch of dudes scrounging together. But I think what they did with what they had was fucking superb. Also, I think while the opening 3 tracks, Heat, Gold Star, are a great run, I think the last 3 tracks, being Milk, Face, and Waste, are another astounding 3-track run. And it's all in the same record.
And I agree with that completely. On the track Milk, specifically, we see a side of Merlyn that I don't think you ever see again in the Brockhampton discography. Him giving like an unhyped verse that's kind of a confessional, but like him being the only black guy on campus at a college.
Dropped out of school.
It's weird that he never tapped into that again after this.
Yeah, I know. It's always like, unfortunately, Merlyn always feels like a gimmick at times.
Yeah, and he should be a lot more than that.
Yeah. I mean, I think tracks like Face and Waste are amazing. I mean, Face was the first single. Joba, I mean, I'm a sucker for fucking Joba high-pitched singing. Like,
so am I. But he wasn't established that much yet.
No, and he gets his moments to shine on like Saturation 3, where he really picks up the pace.
Dude, I think he becomes like the secret
face.
Weapon in this group later on.
He ends up becoming, by Roadrunner, like essentially I would consider like the front man.
Yeah.
Essentially, I think he ends up becoming like almost an icon for the band. Like, it seems like Joba gets along with everybody. He kind of seems like this omniscient, mysterious guy. Changes haircuts for every fucking album release. I think like Matt Champion's verse on Face is fucking amazing. Where like Matt doesn't get a lot of time to shine on like Saturation 1 and 2, and then like by Saturation 3 he does get like he gets like a solo track on that record. So I think like all around this is a really outstanding album. It's just a little higher for me because I think even though the production was dimmed down, lyrically, track run wise, the way the album sits front to back it's a lot tighter.
I have one last note on Saturation 1. It felt like they had these weird 90s alt rock influences on this record that like didn't show up again for a long time in their music. I mean, stuff like Bump and Swim, like the clean guitar and like the sung choruses. I don't know. It felt like that's something that they would have expanded on, and then it disappeared for at least until like Roadrunner, I think. Like tracks like What's the Occasion? Like that's kind of like a 90s alt thing going on. It was just weird. I felt like that was like gonna be an ingredient in the band's musical repertoire going forward, and then it wasn't.
I think part of that probably has to do with like the band getting more comfortable in like a certain groove or a certain style.
Yeah.
And the band kind of expanded into, I mean, I think things blend together by Saturation 3 in a way where everybody's on the same page. We're on number 3.
At number 3, I have Iridescence.
Okay. All right. I
thought that was high.
No, it is. It's great. I'm glad you have it that high. I have Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine. And
Okay.
I think for me, with this record, this was the moment after we're moving on. The band's kind of in shambles. We go Iridescence, Ginger, New Light, New Machine. This is where it kind of felt like the band had found itself again. They found a way to move on, kind of like fill the member in. Joba kind of feels like the front man now. This album, at least, the way it was kind of... Oh my God, we're going to get into it on this one. The way the album was kind of advertised, kind of like the lore, as you could call it, around the album. Like Joba kind of feels like the central focus. Like there are literally moments on the album where the members are literally praying for Joba. Joba's father had killed himself, and Joba is like able to get that out on the record. I think this album sits really high for me because not only does it get like extremely emotional and touches on some really heavy subjects, really intense instrumentals, some of the best the bands has seen since Saturation 3. Honestly, like this could be a number 1 contender, but it's not because for me, I have bias for my number 1 spot. But I think as a whole, this is the best the band looks post Ameer. And I think this might be the best the band looks as far as as a whole. I mean, from and discography wise, and I'm biased where my number 1 and my number 2 sit just out of personal enjoyment. I think this album does a lot.
I had this at number 5 for me, and this was hard because I think when it came out, I agreed with the sentiment that it was the best post-Ameer Brockhampton album. Now, when I went back to listen to it, something about the feature-heavy nature of the record made it feel less like a Brockhampton album.
And I remember we've had this conversation before. This is the only time they've ever really like given features.
Yeah.
Dude, when the first single came out with fucking Danny Brown Buzzcut, dude, that was my number 1 song that year when it came out. That was my number 1 played song.
Because it's fucking awesome.
It is.
It's an awesome song.
It's fucking awesome. Danny Brown, JPEG on Chain On, ASAP Ferg, which fucking the world needs to forget about him, but like an ASAP Rocky on Bankroll.
And Count on Me.
Mm-hmm. I think the features are a little weird. I think the album itself actually ties a lot into like Iridescence. To me, Buzzcut could easily fit on Iridescence. It feels like that Iridescence sound, that insane sampling, the chaos, almost like a synth poppy, air horny. I mean, it could easily fit into that. And I think I wouldn't even be surprised if it was a scrap sample and they threw fucking Danny Brown on it to tie it together. But then you have like those moments, and then you have The Light, which is in my top 5 favorite tracks.
I think 1 and 2.
Oh my
to be
God,
fair,
they're fucking amazing. And when I heard The Light for the first time, I didn't even listen to the lyrics. I was listening to the guitar. I mean, I remember when this album came out. I mean, I remember the night it came out. I remember exactly where I was. I remember the moments where I was listening to the album, fucking grin on my face. I felt like they fucking did it. I'm like, the band is fucking back. They are on top of the fucking game again. I mean, I remember Ginger just being like, and Roadrunner feeling like, nope, they're over the bullshit. They're fucking doing it. We're in it to win it. Full speed ahead. We have tickets in April to see the fucking band. We're going. We're going to have a good fucking time. And then it was just like,
what a heartbreak that was.
Fucking damn.
I don't know what it is. I think the fact that the album is so feature heavy lessens the impact of tracks like The Light 1 and 2. It just feels less like an output from the band.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's like a bad record, because I think honestly, like quality wise, it's better than Ginger or maybe even Iridescence. Possibly. It's just weird, like on tracks like Chain On, where literally it's just JPEG and Dom. It just feels like there's less collaboration between the actual Brockhampton members.
Makes sense, yeah.
The production kind of ties itself more to like a pop-ish kind of thing. I don't know. I would like to shout out the track When I Ball, because the instrumental sounds like it came straight off of Late Registration Kanye. Mm-hmm. It's glorious to hear Dom McLennon like rap over an instrumental like that. I mean, it's a fun record.
I think I share a very similar sentiment. To me, when I view the record, I don't really think about the features being a really big deal for me. I think they add a lot to the band dynamic. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of moments for band members to shine outside of those, because you do have tracks like Don't Shoot Up the Party, Count on Me, like where to me I don't ever get to feel like we're in the same flow that we're in for like the original Saturation trilogy. Like I can't even think of a moment where like Matt Champion's on the record or like Merlyn. You know what I mean? It just feels like they're kind of lost in translation. So I understand that. I hate the song I'll Take You On. I hate that track.
Really? I like that one.
That one's way too poppy for me. Way too generic.
See, I would skip like Count on Me and Bankroll. Like those are like the 2 tracks that I hate the most from the record.
Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay. It's kind of weird. We'll like love a moment on another track or on another album where like it's very similar, and then like, and I'm speaking for both of us, and they'll be like, yeah, but on this record it fucking sucks. But hey, to each his their own. Okay. It's all
I
good.
think this is the hardest one to judge.
It's a weird album. I mean, it's a weird for the band. It's a different sound. It kind of feels like more of a streamlined Iridescence. like a little bit more focused.
Yeah.
Hey, I think the emotional points on the track are outstanding. Like Dear Lord is one of the most beautiful tracks they have. And yeah, the Light Part 2 is a great outro. It's not like Bearface soaring over a beautiful guitar, but it's a great way for the band to wrap up together on an album, which I think they hadn't done in a long time. And it feels really good because it's not Bearface or Ameer. It just feels it feels like everybody's kind of on the same page and everybody feels we're on the same ground.
Yeah.
So I respect the shit out of it. And it's one of the albums I return to the least.
Really?
But I respect the shit out of it. Yes. I don't return to many tracks on this record besides The Light. So, but I think front to back it's very solid. Number 2?
At number 2, I have Saturation 3.
Number 2, I also have Saturation 3, which I'm too inebriated to even know what your number 1 is. So, Saturation 3, it's fucking beautiful. It's the band at their height. It feels like it's the most fun.
Yeah, it is their most fun. It's certainly the most experimental out of the Saturation trilogy. God, some of their best of all time songs appear here.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get into it. Boogie, Johnny, Stupid, Sister Nation, Bleach, Alaska, Rental. Those are at least some of my track highlights.
I feel like this is the one where some of the lesser members on the other Saturations kind of like start coming into their own, especially Joba.
Yeah, he gets his moments.
This is where he becomes kind of the MVP of the group in a way. You know, I used to hate the track Boogie and Zipper when this record came out.
Really?
I remember when it was released, I was sampling. I can't say I was sampling, but I was like just going through the track list. I was like, okay, I'm on track 2, Zipper. I'm not liking this so far. And of course, I came to grow onto those songs a little bit, but the song Johnny.
Oh, yeah.
Christ.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they ever hit this like level of jazz rap that they do on this track. Like they never did this beforehand, and I think they never really did it after.
One of my favorite lyrics in all of Brockhampton's discography is on this track. Kevin says, "When I imagine myself on acid, I take step backwards."
I thought he said I taste stuff backwards.
That's what I thought too.
And I thought that was an awesome line.
And I'm like, yeah, you do taste stuff backwards, like a strawberry with like, yeah, man. God, dude, Matt Champion. I feel like Matt Champion finally gets his moment to shine with Joba too on this track. Like, I think Matt Champion and Joba both have where they feel like they were in the kind of the background of the band. They really have their moments to shine, which like they're both fucking outstanding artists.
They're the unsung champions of the group in a way. Zipper is kind of like a throwback to Slim Shady LP Eminem in a weird way, like in a non-cringe way. I know everybody loves to hate Eminem, including me. They really branch out sonically on tracks like Sister / Nation, where they're hitting this like cyberpunk type aesthetic.
Some of my favorite moments are like Bleach being like one of their most popular songs.
How could I forget?
We got to hear that shit live. We got to see them live once.
We did.
At Bogart's here in Cincy. Weird show. Showed up on stage super late. No opener. Like 45 minutes. Like the show was over in 45 minutes. It was like fucking 8:30 by the time we were fucking out of there.
I barely have memory of that show.
I do too. They sung Bleach without Ameer, which was really weird. Like Ameer had been gone from the band at the time. They were still touring. It was a very strange moment in time.
Yeah.
Weird, but we got to see them like that. A track that like I used to hate that really grew on me is the following track after Bleach, which is Alaska, which feels like an Ameer track. I love this. Like this song really grew on me over time. I remember you showed it to me, and I'm like, I need to give this song a little bit more time to digest. And just over time, I think the instrumental I really love. I think Matt Champion has a great closing verse on the record or on that track as well. So the album itself, it just feels like it's like their peak of like what would be considered their quote unquote like best era to like the vast majority of people. The band could have quit here and it'd have been perfect, you know. I do wish like we got to fucking listen to Puppy. Like
So do I.
I have wanted to listen to Ready for War on a release quality for fucking years now. I've heard some tracks off that record that got like released like through group buys and shit, like on Reddit and shit like that. They're fucking amazing.
Yo, before we move on,
Yeah.
I forgot to mention along the way the absence of Ameer on like the post saturation records. I don't.
Oh
think
yeah, this is a big point for you.
I don't think he was like that missed really. When I go back to listen to these newer records, I think that his absence is
Welcome.
positive.
Yeah.
And it's because his performance on this record, I think him alone is actually what stops Saturation 3 from being number one. And that's because I think he turns a lot of this non-experimental songs on this album into like just run-of-the-mill Brockhampton shit. Dude,
You're right.
his flow is so
It's the same every time.
monotonous. I've been through bad people. I might have done it.
I'm a bad guy, but I give the bitches pills and they love me.
I'm from the woodlands.
There's a Glock. Like, yeah, I get it.
He's the only member that like didn't advance
yeah.
or develop
Yeah.
over this time. It's super frustrating because I think it leads to like some of the non-oddities of the track list to becoming like very regular.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I understand that. And we've had this conversation before. I think we had it a couple weeks ago.
The last time we got together, I think we had this conversation.
I will say to leave Ameer on a positive note, on the track Team, my favorite lyrics by Ameer on this, which is he says, I raise my black fist, I got big lips, I'm strong as Samson, they cut my fucking locks. God damn.
What is it a reference to?
Samson is in the Bible, I believe.
Okay. Something I would know very little about.
Samson is like also been like referenced in other religions as well, but like I think he was a slave and they cut his locks and he was strong as shit.
Okay.
So I think it's like one of the hardest lyrics that he delivers. For some reason, that line's always stuck with me throughout the years. And every time that track comes on, I always have to fucking sing that lyric. Like I have to fucking say it. But like, yeah, Saturation 3, it's a culmination of the best of the trilogy to me, front to back. It feels like the band itself had come to what they were supposed to be. And then that gets derailed, unfortunately. But I think it leads to like really great personal and musical development for the band, which is a fucking blessing in disguise. Number one.
Yeah. Let's get to it.
What do you have?
At number one, I have Saturation 2.
Okay. God, I ranked it so low.
You did. That's okay.
Just say what you have to say about Saturation 2 before I get my number one. Because I being at your number one, I feel like it deserves a little bit of you should give it a little attention.
I think I kind of stated it a little bit when we talked about it earlier, but I just think it has the best pop appeal. Just like a lot of great songs, like tracks that could serve as singles. I kind of said it when we hit that one earlier.
I get it.
A little bit. But I do want to talk about Iridescence, which is
my number one. I don't know why it is. I don't know why I have it here. I think part of it is I remember the night it came out, I was like texting you this was like early friendship of ours, and just being like really excited, even though it was just so strange at the time.
I remember this very clearly. Were you driving at Domino's at the time, or were you still working?
I'm still working on the inside, I think. Back
Really?
then. I think so. Yeah, I was. But you would close back then,
I did.
so we would talk about music over.
We would reconvene when I come back to the store about it.
Yeah.
I remember exactly where I was when I was texting you about the album.
Really?
I was on Jacksonburg Road
Fuck yeah.
when New Orleans came on, and I remember texting you how crazy the album was.
I think the album, when it released, was like, what the fuck to the vast majority of people. And I think it kind of has this, it's a grower for me. Like over time, I came to appreciate it so much more. Like it's so abrasive and frustrating at times. Like it's really hard to listen to on certain tracks. Like some tracks are just fucking, for a lack of better terms, it's like ear rape at fucking times. Like there's some fucking tracks that are just a little heavy. Like Berlin is fucking insane.
God, those pitch shifted vocals on that one.
And I think the album like starts off really intense and that can be really off-putting and like slowly like cools off with like something about him, which like isn't even like really one of my favorite tracks. It's actually like, one of my least favorite tracks on the record.
Same.
Where the Cash App brings back that energy. Like you start off with like Merlyn, but then like the back half of the record feels like somber, but it's still using like these experimental instrumentation that I love when you get into like Wait, District, and like Tape, Honey, Vivid, Tanya.
This one definitely does open up like in the middle to back half. Like I think that's where it becomes like as good as it is.
And don't get me wrong, like there's still like intense moments. Like Yover is like one of the hardest fucking Brockhampton tracks of all time.
Fuck what you think. Fuck what you heard. Dude, Joba has like literally
he has range. He has fucking range, dude.
It's the hardest verse in their discography maybe. And you know what? Considering this is the first release post Ameer, he fills that void right there.
Does. I actually like, even though I think Ginger is one of the most unique album arts, I think for me personally, this is like one of the most iconic. Like I think Ginger is really cool, but like I own this record on vinyl, and it's when I see it, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm glad this image is blown up to the size that it is, because I think the pregnant woman, like who strangely kind of looks like Joba, you know, and like the fucking
I'm sure that was
like the heat wave predator look at, like, I don't know. This is my band's magnum opus for some reason.
Okay. This is my favorite non-saturation album for sure. Over time, it has grown on me more than any other post-saturation album. Now, when it comes to shortcomings, the only thing I can think of is that it just lacks the hooks that made Brockhampton special in the first place. I think Kevin is largely absent a lot of the record. Matt Champion is also kind of absent a lot of the time. But I think that the MVPs of the record are Joba, Dom, and Merlyn.
Yeah. And they fit perfectly for the instrumentation.
Exactly. It's fun seeing the members that aren't highlighted as well on previous records being at the forefront. And there's some things that never fail to trip me up about this album. I was listening to the track Wait tonight, actually, and it goes through so many beat changes or transformations that I forget what track I'm on. The unpredictable nature of the record makes it a lot of fun. I mean, Radiohead's Videotape is sampled on the track.
Tape,
yeah.
One of my favorite things about the record is actually there's something that like has never really happened, I don't think, up until this point, is that on Tanya, fucking like Bearface gets to like rap, or like, and it's kind of like a slow.
Oh, he has a few of those.
Yeah, and it's like it's really Bearface is up until this point had always been compartmentalized to the singer, the guitarist, the soul guy, and kind of like get to see him become more comfortable on just what would be otherwise bar delivery. That was really interesting to me. Dude, they fucking sang Tanya on fucking Jimmy Fallon. They were sitting in a goddamn circle.
I remember that so clearly.
And this album was supposed to be called The Best Years of Our Lives. Like there was a completely different album art. Like the album went through like a transformation.
I think that might have been the name of a trilogy that never came to be.
Well, I think on Jimmy Fallon, he said that the album was called The Best Years of Our Lives. So I don't know.
Dude, there have been so many names floated around. Puppy, Team Effort.
Yep.
You can't take a fucking thing that Kevin Abstract says at face value.
No, you cannot. We found that out the hard way over many years.
I think that you're the reason why I went on to appreciate this one more. I understand why it's your number one.
I don't even know that it's like an amazing album experience front to back, like from track one to the finish, to sit down and listen to it as a whole. But I think like tracks themselves are extremely fulfilling. Like there's so much to pick at. Just small example, Berlin is really heavy and intense, and the way the third act of the song like pushes over the top is that they literally have the sound of a car revving, to like push
Yeah.
in the last few vocals.
And they boost the fuck out of the
Yes,
bass
they do.
on the back half of this one.
And like there's a synth run on that track. The album's just like all over the place.
It's really great, actually.
And like my favorite track, and I think it might be my favorite Brockhampton track, is Honey, which like samples Beyonce and Bump. There's like little things in that sample where like there's a constant sound in the background that like for some reason sounds like Yoshi. It's very strange, and once you hear it, you can't unhear it. I love the record. It's my favorite, obviously being at number 1.
I'm going to put another card in your hat. Is that a term?
It is now.
I think people say that.
Sure.
I mean, they say it. God damn it. I think this record was recorded, not just recorded, it was written over a weekend. So, like, the album was, like, primarily made at the last minute because of the fact that they had to, like, ditch Puppy and they had a schedule to adhere to. So they did this, like, last second on the fringe, and it turned out the way it did. You know, it was still very high quality.
I meant to bring up a small point. This record is 22 million. It is like when an artist or a band takes a complete 180, pulls really experimental elements into their formula, and it becomes such an elevated experience to me, because you still have great lyricism and great somber and more like melodic, what you would maybe like cookie cutter for the band, but then the vast majority of it is, you know, akin to a growing experience with the band. Even if it was written in a short amount of time and it may not have been like the most visionary production where they had an idea and they wanted to get it out, even though it's like kind of a mess, it like works really well as a mess.
It represents the state of the band at the time.
And that's like my favorite fucking state of the band, when they're just, they don't know what the fuck's going on.
A lot of bands' best albums are like created in a state of chaos.
Yeah. And hey, it's my favorite band, and it's like honestly like the black sheep of their discography. And it just, to me, out of all the records, it has been my go-to, like, yep, this is the one that like keeps giving for some reason. So that's why it's up there. I fucking love it. It's my favorite. My friend, I think we did it. I think we did all right.
Can I say this is the most fun I've had, like, ranking a thing so far?
Good, because it's my love letter to the band. Like, it's my favorite band, and you know, I'm gonna keep loving them for the foreseeable future. I'll keep them in my heart.
Of course.
Next year they'll be my fucking number 1 artist again for some reason.
We'll see what happens in the aftermath of the breakup of the group.
To me, the one member that I want to hear the most from is probably Bearface. I hope he keeps making music. And then if I had to give like a couple behind that, it would be like Joba, Dom, and Matt Champion. I want to hear them a lot too.
Okay. I'm not even sure who I'd be on the lookout for. I want them to like split up into groups, like mini groups.
Like a duo or a triplet.
I feel like Matt and Merlyn work together really well. Who does Bearface work together with? Well,
Bearface and a guitar.
That's true.
I don't know. We'll see.
I can't fucking tell the future. Also, I'm kicking myself because I wanted to bring this up when we reviewed Men in Black tonight. This is our second podcast of the night, by the way, everyone.
If you can't tell by our blood alcohol content.
I have had like 5 old fashions. But I meant to say, public service announcement by me is that the podcast has social media now.
Yeah. Link in the description.
Maybe if I remember my drunk ass when I edit these things. You can catch us on Instagram and Twitter at The Whitest Guys. We're also on TikTok as Two Dudes Brews Reviews.
Yeah, check it out. Follow, like, tell your mom.
Your mother will love us.
Yes.
But yeah.
With that being said, I think we did an all right job. It's about time for us to wrap up. It's getting a little late.
Yeah, it is.
Getter, if you could do it for me one more time tonight, I'd appreciate it.
Adios.